Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Issa, members of the committee. I'm very pleased to be here today to discuss GAO's second bi-monthly review of the use of Recovery Act funds by selected states and localities. In order to carry out our statutory responsibilities, we've selected 16 states and the District of Columbia to review over the next 2 to 3 years to do a longitudinal study of the use of the money by those localities, how they're safeguarding the money, and reporting on the impact. Now, these 17 jurisdictions will receive approximately 2/3 of the Recovery Act funds that will be flowing to these states and localities. Now, one of the reasons we're doing a longitudinal study, as you can see from this chart here, while about $49 billion was estimated by CBO to flow to the states and localities in 2009, the peak period for Recovery Act funds to be outlaid will be 2010, and 2011 will continue funds distributed to the states and localities and outlays. So the money will be distributed. Approximately $280 billion will be going to the states and localities. So far, of the $49 billion that was estimated to go to the states, nationally, about $29 billion has been distributed there as well. Now, the character of the spending is shown for this fiscal year, 2009, in this following chart. The predominant amount of money that will be outlaid to the states and localities is in the Medicaid program, where the federal government's matching share has been increased. Every state received an increase of 6.2%, and then additional increases based upon unemployment rates in those states and localities. Among the 17 jurisdictions, ours range from an increased federal share of 6.2% in Iowa up to 12.24% in Florida. So far, the 17 jurisdictions that we looked at had drawn down $15 billion in the Medicaid spending area, or about 86% of the approximately $17.5 billion that had been allocated to them through the third quarter of this fiscal year. They're using the money to maintain Medicaid benefit levels and provide services. Most of the states that we visited also had increased caseloads in the Medicaid area, and this has enabled them to be able to do that. The increased federal share also freed up state monies potentially that could be used in other areas and to help them with their fiscal stresses. The second area is the State Stabilization Fund. About 82% of that money is to be used for education purposes and distributed to local education agencies or institutions of higher learning. 18% can be used to stabilize public services, particularly public safety, and they have more discretion on using the money. The 17 jurisdictions we visited had been allocated by the Department of Education almost $17 billion. So far, they've drawn down $4.3 billion, or about 25% of the money that's been allocated. In the highway area is the next largest area. The 17 jurisdictions we had received had been allocated about $15.5 billion. They've obligated about $9.2 billion, or slightly over that, so about 59% of the money's been obligated. Now, obligated here means that the Federal Department of Transportation and the state have agreed on the nature of the projects. The projects in the localities we visited, there were about 2,600 projects that had been approved already, most of them for paving roads or widening roads, since that could be allocated more quickly in the state's opinion. So far, the way that program works is that states are reimbursed as they're making payments. So of the 17 localities, so far they're being reimbursed $96 million. So that money is beginning to go through the system, but a lot more is obligated than has been outlaid at this point in time. And as you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, we believe that the Secretary of Transportation, in consultation with Secretary of Commerce, needs to clarify the economically distressed area issue now before a lot of the money is spent, the remainder of the money. Now, The Recovery Act funds have clearly helped states deal with fiscal stresses, but they've also increased the accountability requirements for the states. And we're concerned that under fiscal stress, the states have been cutting back on some of their management and audit function areas, thereby reducing some of the safeguards. So, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Issa of the committee, we support passage of H.R. 2182. We think it's very much needed and in line with the recommendations in our report, which is to really increase the utility of the single audit area, and I can talk more about that in the Q&A session. Also, there's greater need, while OMB has taken important steps to clarify the guidance, additional clarifications needed and better communication with the states is needed as well. And I'd be happy to elaborate on all these areas in the Q&A session. Thank you very much, and we look forward to continuing to support the Congress and their important oversight over the Recovery Act spending.
Thank you very much for your testimony.